All right. Looks like it is 4:05, so I guess we can start the panel, or not the session today. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining the session today. I mean, consider this your midday happy hour, and I guess a good transition to a beautiful weekend. And so before we start the event, I'd just like to introduce myself. So hello, everyone. My name is Anuj, and I am the COO of NSCF. So I'm the one in charge of organizing these events, such as the professional speaker events and the student panels. And then I'll pass it forward to Andrew.
Hey guys, so thanks for everyone joining. I'm Andrew. I'm the founder of NSCF, the National Supply Chain Foundation. So I'm a little background about me is I'm a senior at Michigan State University studying supply chain management with a minor in information technology. So I'll pass it off to Varun to introduce himself as well.
Hey everybody, my name is Varun and I'm an associate planner at Crabtree Evelyn. And I also am a Purdue University grad, class of 2020.
All right, sounds great. So I will be monitoring the question and answer chat box. So if you guys have any questions during the presentation, feel free to jot them down in the chat box, and I will be sure to ask Varun after his presentation. But other than that, I'll let Varun take the floor and present about his topic. So thank you, Varun.
Yeah, of course. Let me just share my screen. Here we go. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
All right. So thank you everybody for showing up. I know it's a Friday and everyone's got a lot going on, so I really appreciate your time at four in the afternoon. But let's get started. So as I said earlier, my name is Varun, and I'm a Purdue grad, class of 2020. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Industrial Management and Supply Chain last spring. So it's been fun. It's been a fun journey. I never thought life after graduation would be this interesting, but here we are. So a little bit more about me. I was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts since 1998. And I'm a proud Boilermaker, like I said. I'm an avid traveler, love to travel. Before COVID, I had visited about 10 cities in 2019, ranging from anywhere like London to Toronto to even Cincinnati, actually twice. It's actually a really nice place. I'm a diehard hockey fan. I love the Boston Bruins. One of my favorite players actually graduated from Michigan State. He was a really cool guy, Torrey Krug. And I also have a bunch of other hobbies. I like hiking, cooking, reading, investing, camping, and anything else, which is really just a general enjoyment. So during my, as I mentioned earlier, I was very involved in college, and some of my involvements include being the president of the Operations Supply Chain Organization. It was a students organization which we promoted different forms and levels of supply chain, anywhere from an entry and associate level to even having a chief supply chain officer once do a little give a lecture, and it was all informational. We were able to promote internships, entry-level jobs, and anything in between. I was also involved in Purdue entrepreneurship. There were several programs like the Anvil and Delta Mu Kappa, which I was not an honorary, but I was very involved with them. One of the coolest things we did was we helped organize a first ever trek to San Francisco called Boiler Trek, which is a really fun project. We went away for a week. Purdue sponsored us, and we got to meet a bunch of people. Go to companies like Airbnb, Google, Tesla. We even met a Forbes 30 under 30 entrepreneur called Arun Sehgal, founder of Thunkable. Like I said earlier, I also loved hiking, so it's part of the hiking club at Purdue. Really fun. We went all over the Midwest and Indiana. Actually, some really nice places. And I was also part of freshman orientation for international students. That's what BGRI was. So we helped a bunch of students from like Asia, Europe, South America, just like really get acquainted. So it was like a very rewarding, it was very rewarding for me. Along with that, here's some of my work experience. Since the summer of 2016, I was working with Staples under 3 titles as a database intern, business intern, and operations intern. And then in 2019, I wanted to get a little switch over. So I decided to go into the life science industry instead of kind of like the retail and consumer space. So they kind of, if you don't know who they are, they do diabetic medication, and they do a bunch of other drugs. They're located in Indiana, and they've been around for 150 years. Just recently had their 150th a year or two ago. And since then, since Lilly, I've transitioned to Crabtree Evelyn. I've been working with the company since last May. So it's honestly been a year, but it's actually gone by really quickly. I didn't even realize that till the other day. I'm like, it's almost June again, which is crazy. As you can see, the logos are there, and for many people don't know this, but Staples actually went through a rebrand, and the logo is actually a little different if you can see it up there. But with that being said, many of you have probably heard of Staples, and I can say like a good handful have probably heard of Eli Lilly, but probably none of you have heard of Crabtree and Evelyn. I certainly haven't, but my mom and my grandma had heard of it. So it was really funny. Which was really funny. So to tell you a little bit more about the company, we are a skincare and cosmetics company. If I was here in person, I would have tried to bring some free samples for you guys. We got a ton of really good products. We were originally founded in 1955 in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is a little city right outside of Boston, not too far. We were originally tailored towards like your grandma, grandpa, your kind of like older audience. We had like a bunch of smelling products, but none of them which I would say like really would captivate you. In 2016, we became owned by the Nanhai Corporation of Hong Kong, and we started actually a rebrand for the company in 2019. So we sold off all of our retail stores, no more mall operations. We sold our own like warehouse, and we now use a third-party fulfillment center made in the US. And we transitioned to a full e-commerce model because that's what we see that being like, that's the way of the future. That is how like you're going to be able to rack up your sales more in a changing and more digital type world. And in that rebrand, we began gearing ourselves towards a younger audience, someone of your age, my age, in college, just recently outside college, and just products and smells that really just scream we're younger. On this slide, you can actually see some of our products. On the top left, you can see like a bunch of really colorful tubes. These are called our Cult Collection. So as we rebranded, there were some items which we did want to bring over. So that's what these guys are. You can see by the top where it says Cult Collection on the rim. But we also have a bunch of new products. So if you look to the top right, the green and pink ones, the green one is called our Crabtree line, which is really great. They got a really bunch of good smells. They actually smell, it's more geared towards like an apple type smell. And the pink ones are the Evelyn Rose collection, which is really good. The Velvet Body Melt is actually one of our best products, and it's actually a really good one. I like the smell of it. It's geared towards more of a female audience, while the Crabtree line is more unisex. I actually use the Crabtree one more. And some of my favorite products are like the shaving cream and the aftershave balm, but I also really like their pulp face mask. That one's really good. It smells amazing. Actually, really smells like apples. But besides skincare, we actually have some other products like maple syrup, which is the biggest surprise to me. I joined in May and they were like, oh, we're just about to launch our syrup line. And if it weren't for COVID, we were going to have a syrup party. And honestly, I was all for that. Love French toast and some pancakes. It's going to taste really good. Down there, we have our little trio flight, which was like, one of them was sea berry, which is really popular. And we also have like a ginger maple syrup, which my personal favorite, tastes really good. And besides that, we actually have some cool projects which we launched. The last one is the bottom right, which is our Bali Collection. And what we do is we have an exploration team who goes off to a bunch of countries and kind of really explores it. You really take in the sights and the smells and kind of like the culture around you, and we try and transform it into a product line that tries its best to like emulate and capture that magical experience. And the one I'm very fond of down there is the gray one, the gray tube. It's called the Volcanic Ash Face Mask. It's fun. I use it every Friday. I've really gotten into using a skincare routine, which I never thought I'd ever do. I just thought I'd use lotion every day. That was it. Maybe some Vaseline on like the face and lips. But honestly, I really enjoyed it. But we have like a bunch of really good collections, and like we have some really good products. And my personal role is I work with the chemicals. So a lot of these chemicals, a lot of these products that you see here, they wouldn't be created without me being able to like go out and procure them with our vendors. So that kind of gets into like, what is my role? Like, what is a snapshot of my day? So as I mentioned earlier, I deal with the purchasing of chemicals, but that's not simply what we do. I also work with our our regulations and quality team to make sure that like we're always able to make sure that like we're able to track like what's going in and making sure that like we're using the best chemicals possible, nothing's going wrong. I also work on extending the shelf life of chemicals that have hit their expiration days. A lot of times we're able to get the shelf lives of a chemical extended, which is great because it's able to save the company money. And we're also able to basically say, like, we don't have to go out and purchase more chemicals when we have a bunch of chemicals just sitting in our warehouse that easily still have value, which we're not exploring. Also delivering a ton of high-level reports to our senior staff. That's one of the perks of being at a small company. You work very closely with your executives and your senior executives. One of the things I also really enjoy doing is we get to improve vendor relations in procurement and planning. A lot of times, like, you're just a name on a screen, but if you really go out of the way, you can become not just simply a name on the screen, but you can become someone who associates with them. We go out to dinner, we go chat. Like, one of them, we just talk only about hockey, and it's great. Every time, like, they have a good game or a good loss. I actually got a message from them yesterday where we lost 7-2. Heartbreaking, but it's enjoyable having someone to talk to about it. So it can really go a long way in terms of improving lead times, being able to maintain and meet your production orders without delay. So it really is beneficial. Along with that, I work to forecast for our future demand. So making sure that I'm able to make sure that we're getting our orders in a month to 2 months ahead of time, so they can come in and they won't really cause significant delays to our production cycle. And lastly, this is my personal favorite, is always being able to brainstorm and improve the tasks above. So a lot of times I schedule some time off just to block out some time, just to simply think about how can I continue to improve on the processes above? Because one of the great things about small companies, there's always really interesting ways for you to add your own twist on them, to find a way to continue to improve them and decrease the amount of time that is required for each task, which is something I personally enjoy. But as I mentioned, Crabtree Evelyn is a very small company. So I'd also like to talk to you about and you may be wondering, what are the pros of working for a small company? So one of the biggest pros is you're going to wear multiple hats. And by multiple hats, I mean, you'll be working cross-functionally with many departments. While I personally work in the planning department, I work all the time with the regs and quality team to understand the science behind how the chemicals interact. So while I'm not science savvy, I had a lot of trouble in chemistry 101, but I'm definitely learning a lot more because I'm able to understand how exactly each chemical fits into the formula, but also learning more about why we don't do certain things would not be okay, and why making sure that we give the best standard chemicals in our products. Another thing about working for a small company is you actually become a category master, and it really does make you feel very important to the company, because whenever somebody has a question, within your first month, you're going to become the go-to. You're going to become the expert in everybody's eyes on if they say, I need to go talk to someone about procuring a chemical. After my first month, people started coming to me and saying, hey, we need X, Y, and Z. How fast can you get them? And I'd work with our vendors to say, oh, we can get it in under a month. And I'm like, that's great. Or we can get it to you in a week. And I'm like, that's even better. So you really do feel important. And a lot of people are going to recognize the value that you bring very quickly to a small company. And basically that value can transition to gaining visibility with senior management at your company. Because a lot of people, because I mentioned earlier that you'll be working very closely with senior management, they're going to take notice of a lot of the hard work and a lot of the good efforts that you're putting in. So they'll see that and they're like, he really is showing that he can put his money where his mouth is. He's showing that he really cares about what he's doing. And it's really great, because at a bigger company, it'd be much tougher to basically have the CEO recognize the kind of work you're doing. Whereas Crabtree and Evelyn, it's actually a lot easier. And another big thing, I think the last pro I could really list on this is you learn a lot. There's so much to learn with a smaller company, because you're basically going to be like that category expert. You're going to be learning about the system that you're working with, which in our case is SAP. You're going to be learning about logistics. You're going to be learning about quality and regs. You're going to be learning even for finance and accounting. I've been learning a lot about how that's handled. So that's one of the most interesting things is you don't simply just learn about planning. You're going to learn about so many different facets of what you're going to be working on in the company. But for me personally, the biggest pro about working with Crabtree and Evelyn has been the view. This is the view from my office, and I absolutely love it. Anyone who follows me on Instagram knows that I take photos of this all the time when I'm up there. And they're 4 different views, so got to cycle through, make sure I use a different view every time, but it's really nice. I love the view. I stare at it. I stare out of the window so often. It's really nice. We also have cold brew on tap, so that's also great. I like drink 3 to 4 cups every time, so also a great perk. But with every pros, there are some cons. And so I also want to make sure that people are aware that what can be some of the cons of working with a small company is it's not just simply all pros. You're constantly defining processes. That is a big one because at a small company, while they have a certain way of doing it, if you're going to be working on a new process, you're always going to be trying to figure out how it's going to fit in and how can we change for the better. And processes like those can take, honestly, a very long time because change management is not something that's simply like that can happen instantaneously. Departments have to agree to it, have to make sure that everything can align properly, and even make sure that like doesn't even make sense for us to go through this change, or it doesn't make sense for us to even go through implement it. And who knows, but that's what you're going to be doing every time you're going to look into something that could really improve the business functions. It's going to be a lot of work to define that. Along with that, you have minimal supervision. A lot of times me and my boss are very busy. So I'll give him a quick message on Teams, but a lot of times I got to make sure I can handle my tasks on my own and make sure that if I do bring something to him, it's got to be like, it's crucial. Like you got to make sure that like you've exhausted all your options. You've told your vendors, say like, we need this chemical now. What can you do? And if they can't really help you out, you got to like escalate it. But minimal supervision is something which will happen very often. There's also a huge learning curve. For me, my training program was about a couple of weeks, but 4 1-hour sessions. But for me, it took me it was very quick for me to learn our system and learn how it fit into my everyday. And you can ask questions too. Like nobody's gonna harp on you, but there's a steeper learning curve than say having like 1 month of training or having 2 months of training, because you got to be able to learn the systems. You got to be able to quickly communicate. You have to be able to learn how each department interacts with each other and who to go to when you need help. So definitely there's a very steep learning curve towards that. And these two are kind of like conjoined. You definitely are going to have more meetings and you're going to have longer hours. There's some days where I find myself working 10 to 11 hours a day. And those can definitely be like some of your more important days when you really got to meet a deadline, or you really have been in meetings all day and you just got to get like some of your other work done. So those are some things which those are some of the cons you'll experience working with a small company. But I know I've talked a lot about like Crabtree and a bit about my background, but I want to get to something a little bit more relevant about myself, which is how did I get to Crabtree and Evelyn out of college? And so I guess like a big thing was COVID-19 happened. And as we all know, March 2020, that wasn't the greatest of months or years. The world froze, businesses closed, and sports were canceled. That was sad. And hiring freezes were essentially implemented all across the country. So as someone who was a senior, still looking for, who was interviewing at the time, it was not ideal because how in the world was I going to get a job? Like, what was happening? I had no idea. We essentially entered a recession. So what did I use? And LinkedIn and the Purdue Alumni Network were two of the most useful things for me. LinkedIn, I was able to constantly do the quick, easy apply. I was able to reach out to people, learn more about. They would even set time up with me, be very helpful, and simply tell me about what they liked about the companies. I got to learn actually about a bunch of cool ones while I was at it. There were a couple in Chicago, a couple in Arizona and San Francisco, a bunch of really cool ones, and I actually remember a few of them. The alumni network was also super helpful. I reached out to a bunch in San Francisco, Boston, Dallas, Austin, and a lot of them were also super eager to help fellow Boilermakers. So for those who are in Michigan State or in any college, your alumni network can be a very useful tool for you, especially like in uncertainty, in recessions, or even who knows if you're graduating now. But a big thing for me during COVID was I had to reprioritize what I wanted, because at the time I realized, who knows how long this is going to last? Do I have the option to be picky about what I'm taking? So for me, I had to figure out, what is it that I really wanted in a job? And for me, that was simply, I wanted a place where I could learn a lot, and somewhere in a place that would give me the opportunities and make me feel like I mattered to the company. And I also realized I wanted to be open to new opportunities. in college, I always thought of myself as someone who would kind of go into the tech industry. I've always loved Silicon Valley, and I love San Francisco. But here I am working at a skincare company. Honestly, I've genuinely enjoyed it. I've learned so much about chemicals, about the skincare industry, and how like marketing works. And honestly, it's really great because I never would have thought of that and really would have thought of that last year. But keeping an open mind has been helpful, and I would say it's made my job very enjoyable. And with that being said, you got to make the best of what you can. Um, I couldn't afford to be picky, and I couldn't afford to say, is this in a time like this? I couldn't afford to say like, do I want to turn this down for something better? Because who knows when the next time would have been. Like unemployment was very high for a while. Companies were on the hiring freeze basically until like November from what I was reading. So for me, it was something saying, you gotta be able to be flexible. So with that being said, I know like everything can be crazy, and you might be also thinking to yourself in this time, how am I going to make the best of COVID during COVID? And whether you're a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, or a senior, I can at least offer you some advice, which I personally wish I could have been offered every time I finished my year. And these were actual notes that I wrote down, which I was going to give to my little brother, which I did give to my little brother, but I wanted to share these also with you because every year I kind of made a note of what do I wish I did better, or what is something I wish I knew, which I feel like could have made my year more enjoyable. So to the freshmen on this call, I want to say, discover your passions in your community. Those can be very important, making sure like you know what makes you happy, like something that you enjoy, and being able to find people who enjoy it just as much as you do can honestly be something very enjoyable. For me, I love being able to talk about stocks, and I love being able to talk about tech. So when I met some of my closest friends who also had a similar passion, I really enjoyed those grabbing coffee with them and being able to talk about it, or all those late night talks about like what's going on with Zuckerberg. Another thing is your GPA really doesn't define you. To be honest, once you hit like a certain mark, it really doesn't matter. Companies are more interested at the point in like what are you involved with? How are you a leader? What is it? What are the skills that you have that make you stand out? I think that's a big thing. People put too much pressure on the GPA. Make sure to develop healthy habits. One of the biggest things with as a freshman is like people don't work out as much, and people like will go to the dining courts. I think being able to say like developing healthy sleeping habits, making sure that you're taking care of yourself both physically and mentally are some of the most important things a freshman can do, regardless of like if you're doing well or you're not doing well. It's better to always keep yourself healthy mentally and physically, because it'll go a long way. And always be confident in your abilities and skills. If you're at a good university, like you're at a top university, you're here for a reason. Like you have the skills, and you're very confident. Make sure that you express that, because contrary to popular belief, freshmen can get internships. It is possible. And I can say like as long as you're confident, you're able to convey like that you're active and you want to learn, anything can really be possible. And to any of the sophomores and juniors on this call, a great thing is think about what will make you happy. Like I was saying earlier, at this time, like for me, I started exploring different careers and what I really found interesting. So for me, like, and what I can offer to you is figure out like what is something that makes you interested, and say like that's actually really interesting. I might want to go into that career. As I said earlier, I love hockey. And one of the careers I really thought which would make me really excited was being an analyst for the NHL or an NHL team. That was like something which I really got interested in, and one day I hope to do, because honestly, I could talk about hockey for like hours. My boss knows that for a fact. I basically run the man's fantasy hockey team. I know as sophomores and juniors, a lot of people will change majors halfway through a four-year cycle, and honestly, that's not a bad thing. Don't worry too much about it. Whether it takes on an extra year or two, if you feel like you can be more happy in the major you are and feel like you could be successful, it's very often to explore, at least as maybe a new major or even as a minor. Like definitely explore it. Also as a sophomore, I really wished I practiced more for my elevator pitches and practicing for those interviews a little bit more, because honestly, they can be difficult. And I'm very glad to say like practicing in front of a mirror, all while silly as it sounds, can be very beneficial. And if you don't want to practice in front of a mirror, at least do a voice recording, because at least hearing how you sound and how confident you are can really help you out, because it can kind of like take what you don't like and really refine that. And I think a big thing, take fun classes. Before, like, I really wanted to take a bowling class or a wine tasting class. Never got to do it, but honestly, I really wish I did because they sounded fun. I want to become a pro bowler and stop hitting gutter balls because I was terrible at that. It was very humiliating asking them to put the lanes up. And to all the seniors and graduating seniors, this is, I think, the most relevant advice I can give. Find a company that is willing to invest in you. Like I said earlier, I love being able to know that I'm important to the company, and find one that's willing to teach you, to show you the ropes, and really help invest in your career and your growth, because that'll be able to go a long way, because it can really help with your confidence going forward. And it can really help develop you as a young professional. Finding a good work-life balance, I think, is one of the most important things. Being able to not get too stressed out, being able to say, like, if you need to take a step back, take that step back, making sure that you are relaxed and you're kind of excited to come in and get to work, but making sure that you're feeling healthy. Keeping an open mind, that's also very important, making sure that you're open to new opportunities and making sure that you are able to basically take on new challenges while being able to say, I feel like this is relevant to me. And I think especially this is way more relevant because of COVID. Enjoy your time with your friends and family. Like, hey, things can happen. Anything, if the past year and a half have taught us anything can truly happen. And it's always best to basically enjoy that time with those you care about and those you love, because who knows what can happen. So call your mom, call your dad, call your brother, call your sister, because they probably miss you and they love you. But with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you all for my presentation. I've really enjoyed being able to kind of talk to you guys and kind of like give my advice and kind of my history. On here is my contact info, my LinkedIn, my email. If anyone wants to reach out to me or connect with me, you're more than welcome to. I can definitely talk to you guys if you have any other questions. Other than that, thank you guys so much for being here, and hope you guys stay safe.
Thank you, Varun, for taking your time out of your day to present all this information. I think I, for one, took a lot of career advice from this as a graduating senior. There's some things that you talked about that I could definitely take into when I start my full-time career. So thank you for that. And I guess we can start off with some questions. And I think I'll start off with one. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you have in the skincare industry, especially working with such a small company?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things as a small company is there are other companies like Procter and Gamble who are kind of higher priority on our vendors list. So being able to say, like, when they're short on stock, how do we make sure that we are a priority to these vendors? That is one of the biggest difficulties I've faced, and as a company we face. So for us, that's kind of coming with increasing our vendor relations. As we improve, they acknowledge us more. They're willing to communicate with us more and kind of treat us as a bigger vendor, because they realize we're also giving them business as well. So we recently have this our top product, which I mentioned earlier, the Velvet Body Melt. For us, that is one of the biggest things, but we always have a chemical out of stock. Improving the relations, since I came in, we used to have terrible relations with them. And since then, they've been able to prioritize us every time we're purchasing this chemical, especially from companies like Procter and Gamble.
Gotcha, makes sense. Anyone else have any questions? You can put them in the question and answer chat box, or
yeah, feel free to drop any questions from the audience in the Q&A section, or even the chat. We're more than happy to answer that, whether that's from Varun's presentation or NSCF as a whole, and any career advice as well. But as they're doing that, or if they don't have questions, I have an additional question. So I appreciate taking the time and giving us helpful advice, and also learning more about Crabtree and your career path as well, and how you got there. So one quick question I have is regarding the skincare industry, and I'm wondering if or maybe you don't, like, are there any new markets that are kind of appearing within the skincare industry, or any innovation that's happening that you'd like to share, or something cool?
So especially with market segments, that's something which Crabtree has always been exploring. As we rebranded in 2019, shifting towards a younger audience,
Mm-hmm.
We recognize that a lot of younger people are taking more care of their skin, specifically in the female audience, but we've also been targeting more of a male audience. And we kind of focus on that with the Crabtree line, kind of creating a unisex scent, but we're also working on working on the international market. So we recently expanded to Australia, Malaysia, Singapore, China, and we're looking now at potentially expanding to Italy and France, kind of targeting those luxury beauty lines as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Interesting to hear.
All right. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to, again, put it in the chat box.
And then we can always end early, since this is recorded as well. We'll send it out to everyone who attended today, missed the first half. And then before we head out, we want to give a quick shout out to the couple of other events that are coming up. So March 5th, we'll be having the CPG/retail student intern panel Q&A session, and I'll link the registration link in the chat, as well as our link tree with additional information. So feel free to take a look at those when you have the chance, or ask any more questions. So I'm sure Varun is willing to answer anyone's questions. Yeah, and if you guys don't have questions, feel free to head out and enjoy the rest of your Friday. We know that we thank you for taking the time to hear about Varun's presentation, and also the the professional development side as well. So feel free to hop off and enjoy the weekend as well.
With that, though, I'm going to get going, but it's been a pleasure, guys. Hope everyone has a great weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Varun.
Good. All right, sounds good.
Yep. I will be ending the meeting. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right.